Blending modes and compound effects are a way to make layers work together. Keying and track mattes affect the alpha information of a layer. In this chapter about composition, we will learn how the pixel information of one layer can affect another layer based on its different parameters. Many of the effects that we know and love are created using keying, blending modes, and compound effects.
Blending modes are used to determine how the pixels of one layer interact or blend with the pixels that are under it. To see the layer blending modes, let's go ahead and create a composition with this movie called blending.mov, which you have included in your project files. I recommend that you import all the project files you see here from the Chapter 7 Project Files folder. I'll drag it to the new comp icon, and there you go. I'm going to deselect this layer by clicking here on the gray, and now I'm just going to create an oval with this tool here, which is the ellipse tool. Now I'm going to go ahead and blur this oval. So in the Effects and Presets panel, I'm just going to go ahead and click here, and I'll type the words Fast Blur. And there's the Fast Blur. Let's go ahead and drag this to the circle. And as soon as you do that, the Effect Controls panel opens up. Let's go ahead and blur this a little bit. To see the layer blending modes, let's go ahead to the timeline and let's right-click on any of these columns and choose Columns, and now Modes. A new column is going to open up that is going to show us the blending modes. You can also find them if you select a layer and you go under Layer Blending Mode. Either way is the same. These blending modes will affect the layers taking in consideration luma, chroma, and alpha information for both the upper and the lower pixels. I want you to notice that these blending modes are subdivided into different categories. These categories are separated by these very light lines here. Notice that Normal, Dissolve, and Dancing Dissolve are separated from Darken by this very, very thin line, etc., etc. So, let me quickly go through the different categories. The Normal category, which are Normal, Dissolve, and Dancing Dissolve, pixels are not affected unless the opacity of the source layer is less than 100%. Let me go ahead and click here and change the blending mode of the top layer, the shape layer, to something other than normal. Dissolve, look what happens to the edges of the pixel. This is because the opacity of it is something other than 100%, because I had feathered it. The same with Dancing Dissolve. So, the Normal category affects the pixels according to the opacity of the source layer. The next category that we have is the Subtractive category. So again, I'll go to Layer, Blending Mode, and here we go, Darken, Multiply, etc., etc. This category tends to darken colors, very much like mixing pigment colors in paint. Then we have the Additive category. These tend to lighten the colors very much like projecting color light onto a screen. Then we have the Complex category. These perform different functions depending on which colors are darker, either from the pixels of the source layer or from the pixels of the underlying layer. So this is pretty much according to the luma information or luminance of the pixels. Then we have the Difference category. These perform different functions depending on which colors the source or the underlying pixels vary according to hue. So this is according to chroma information and not luminance. Now we come to the HSL category. These transfer one of the components of HSL, which are hue, saturation, and luminosity, from the underlying pixels to create the resulting color. The Matte category. These use luma or alpha values to create mattes for all of the underlying layers. Then we have the utility category. These blending modes serve specialized utility functions. So let's just go through some of them. The first thing that I'd like to mention is that if you select the layer and use the shortcut, which is Shift plus the plus key or Shift plus the minus key, you will change the blending mode of the selected layer. This will let you quickly experiment with the different modes to achieve the desired result. So let me go ahead and select the top shape layer, and now I'm going to use the shortcut, which is Shift plus, to quickly go through the different blending modes. As you see, some of the blending modes affect the pixels, some do not. One of the things that I like doing is duplicating the video layer. So let me go ahead and delete the shape layer. And now I'll duplicate this movie, which is called blending.mov. And I'll do it using the shortcut, which is Control or Command D. Now I can change the blending mode of the top layer. I will use the shortcut for that. And some of the blending modes, like overlay, soft light, hard light, give pretty dramatic results. Alright, let me show you something else. Let's go ahead and delete the top layer and select the remaining layer that we have, and let's apply a hue and saturation effect. So, with the layer selected, let's go to the Effects and Presets panel and just type Hue. You can see here at the bottom the hue and saturation effect. Let's drag it to the clip. Now the Effect Controls panel gives us the properties of that effect. Let's turn the saturation all the way down. So now what we have is a grayscale clip. Let's select the layer in the timeline and duplicate it. The shortcut is Control or Command D. Now let's invert this layer. To invert it, make sure that the top layer is selected, and now go to the Effects and Presets panel and type the word invert. You see it right here under Channel. Let's go ahead and drag it to the clip. Now let's change the blending mode to a color dodge. As you can see, the pixels have disappeared and all I see is a white screen. We are going to add one more effect to this layer. Let's go to the Effects and Presets panel and type in the words Fast Blur. Let's apply this to the top layer. In the Effect Controls panel, you will be able to dynamically change the values for blurriness by just clicking and dragging on this number right here. As you blur it more and more, you're going to see that some of the pixels on the image are coming back, but this time as a sketch effect. When we're happy with the results, let's go ahead and perform a RAM preview. We perform a RAM preview by clicking here. And that's a pretty nice sketch effect. Let's pause. I recommend that when you don't know which blending mode will work best for your particular clip, that you use the shortcut to go through them.